Good evening, everyone. I want to say that I hope everyone is safe and healthy in these trying times. And welcome to Nassau Flyers Live, Fly by Wireless. Just a quick update. We at Nassau Flyers are trying our very best to get back to normal flight operations and hope to have a date very soon. So last week we took a flight around Manhattan. I hope you had the chance to watch live. If not, the video is still available on our YouTube channel. We've already had a few people who have used the information to do the flight in real life. Who knew? So tonight we'll talk about flight training tools in the modern world, specifically CloudAhoy. In a moment, I will show you some of the portions of my flight from last week to demonstrate what it looks like. So first of all, how does this magic happen? All of the Cirrus aircraft in our fleet use the Garmin Perspective avionics suite. Now, a major benefit of these avionics is that they record lots of data. It's sort of like a light version of a black box. It records over 75 data points per second for each flight, which we are then able to upload into CloudAhoy. So now you're probably wondering, what is CloudAhoy? So CloudAhoy is a flight debriefing tool that we have recently started using at Nassau Flyers. It is something that we're planning on rolling out throughout our school. All of our instructors have an understanding of CloudAhoy, and they're working towards improving their knowledge. Remember, now is a great time to take advantage of our virtual instruction program to go over CloudAhoy with your flight instructor. So feel free to ask questions in the chat feature of this video. We have somebody on staff. They should be able to answer you quickly. If not, you could also just email the office. So why do we feel this is such a great tool? It gives you a chance to isolate specific maneuvers and then review that particular maneuver. It gives you a chance to visualize those maneuvers, whether they be S-turns, steep turns, entering the traffic pattern, and you'll get a graphical picture of what your altitude and airspeed has been during the course of your flight. It's going to let anyone review their flight from the comforts of home. Our instructors will email you a file that contains your debrief flight information. And you actually don't need a CloudAhoy account to access your debrief flights. You can go over it and reference it as many times as you like. So before we get started, remember, I'm not an instructor. I just play one on YouTube. Even so, this is a great tool to self-evaluate your own flying. So what we're going to do is, this is what your typical image is going to be. This is a sort of a default setup, which shows the flight, the date that we did it. The CFI has an opportunity to show you scores for particular different parts of the flight. You'll also see flight graphs, which will give you, again, airspeed, altitude. The segment manager is the part that they actually break out each and every part of the flight for you, whether it be as something as taxiing to the runway, the takeoff, whatever you'd like to take a look at. Your intended flight path, we did not put one in for this flight, but if you wanted to have something, you could follow it along pretty simply. And then if you're doing instrument training, you have the ability to add instrument approaches to see what that's going to look like for you. See here, what we have is, obviously it picks up KFRG. It says runway 14, an opportunity to put in initial approach fixes, and also whatever your missed approach is going to be. The navigation gives you an idea exactly where you are on the geographic map. When we go through, you'll see that most of this looks pretty good. And as we start our flight, you see the power settings, the manifold pressure, RPMs, the airspeed is coming alive. You'll see our altitude. We'll have a turn coordinator, and it'll also give you your vertical speed index. In addition, you'll see over here, again, this is another altitude graph that you can take a look at, giving you both altitude and airspeeds. In the lower right, typically, we'll have a two-dimensional view of your entire flight. So let's see how I scored on my flight. The CFI assistant will show us the approach speeds. And we got a score. The computer basically gave us a score of 100, but let's see actually what my instructor said. They're going to be able to put in the notes. And apparently I took off, but I didn't quite maintain VY through the entire flight until we got to CAPS altitude. So who knows what CAPS altitude is? And does everybody know what the VY and the VX is for the aircraft that they fly? So we've moved ahead now, and we're on the Skyline route. Who remembers what speed we should be at while we're at the SFRA? In addition, what altitude should I be flying at? So we see a graphical view here, but if you take videos of your flight, you're actually able to match them up and put them into the CloudAhoy, and you'll see them matched up pretty well. Our turn coordinator is actually not really going to help us with a ball, but it will give us an idea of what our bank angles are. So let's keep an eye on that altimeter. Let's see how I do. And let's see, is my altitude good enough to pass a check ride? So one of the things that I realize is that although this is my favorite part of my flight, perhaps I should pay just a little bit more attention to my flying. So now let's move ahead to the return to Farmingdale. So one of the things that we're able to do is to add an approach into the airport that we're going to land at. Here we know that we're going to be landing on runway 19. So we'll go and enter that. So we're actually not flying an instrument approach, but it's actually a perfect VFR day, as those of you saw the video last week. So what we're going to do instead is to just put in vectors. And hopefully we don't need to go miss. We don't need to put that in. And you can see a magenta line show up in the video. That's very familiar for most of you who fly the Cirrus aircraft. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. The dotted line here will show us what our glide path looks like. And the green line is what I actually flew. So we have this running at 2 times the speed. You have the option of going basically from regular speed all the way up to 10x. Nobody looks good at 10x. couple of things to take a look at. Who can tell when the autopilot got turned off? And do you know what your power settings are supposed to be on your descent? And who can tell if I'm too high or too low during portions of this approach? Well, it's pretty nice to be able to see exactly where I was on the approach. I kept the center line fairly well, but clearly was up and down a bit. All right, so that's the end of our flight portion. And look, I just really appreciate everybody coming out and spending some time with us here tonight. So I definitely survived another flight, but it's important to realize that every time you fly, you can learn how to become a better pilot. I hope you realize how using these digital debriefing tools can help you with your training. I have a question. Has anybody used any other platforms that they've tried out? Don't feel, drop them in our chat feature and we'll be happy to check them out. I hope you'll join us next week. Follow our social media feeds for next week's topic. And if you have any questions or would like to debrief any of your past flights, please give us a call. We have about 6 months worth of data and we'll be happy to share those. Look out for an email about next week. Thanks for joining me tonight. Be safe and stay healthy. Good night.